Hello and welcome to our review of Veronica Mars. I'm Paul,
And I'm Dave.
and this week we're discussing the episode The Girl Next Door. This episode originally aired November 9th, 2004. Let us start off with video games released this week. Oh my god, is there a few massive ones.
Hmm.
So, quickly, they didn't air. Sorry, I got confused there for a minute. Episode, right. November 9th. November 3rd is where we have to go back to. So,
Okay.
if you had a GameCube, PS2, or Xbox, you could pick up Spyro A Hero's Tale. I mean, I guess if you really want it.
Yeah, kind of the marvelous case of they had the Spiral franchise, but after the third game, it kind of went off in weird directions.
Yeah. Also, on November 3rd, if you were a PC gamer, you could pick up a little game called The Incredibles When Danger Calls.
Because it's The Incredibles.
It certainly is. November 4th, if you had a PS2 or Xbox, you could pick up Godzilla Save the Earth, which, it was
You
certainly.
know as well as Godzilla usually saves the Earth.
There was like one good Godzilla game, but moving on. Also on November 4th, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you were much more likely to be picking up this little game called The Legend of Zelda the Minish Cap.
Unless those particular people that supposedly don't like the Zelda franchise for some reason.
I mean, I guess, but I feel like that was. I never played Minish Cap, but I feel like that's remembered as one of the really good Zelda games.
It's one of the particular ones. Again, standing within the list as much as my own uh, biases and whatnot come in. It is a good Game Boy Zelda game, fitting in most of the particular things in there. But yeah, again, it's one of the cases of that you have to play it and see for yourself.
Yes. November 5th, if you had a PC, you could play a little game called Bejeweled 2.
Oh dear God, the insanity of Bejeweled. All those moms on computers.
Yes, there's a reason that EA purchased PopCap, and it's because of
Yeah.
Bejeweled. Also, on November 5th, if you lived in Europe, you could pick up a game called Flat Out on PC and Xbox. I'm not overly familiar with it, but it looks like it's some kind of a racing game.
With a decent amount of explosions.
Yes. It would eventually come to North America, but it would certainly take its time.
Meh.
November 8th, if you're a PC gamer, this little game called EverQuest 2 came out.
Because when you have your EverQuest, the eh, yeah, if you have EverQuest, you got to make it too.
Yes, I feel like EverQuest is one of those games that, like, has, like, its fan base, but never, like, expanded past that. Like, it's been going on forever. Like, this game was released in '04, and the most recent expansion was. There's an expansion coming this year.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the crazy things with MMORPGs.
Yes, it is done very, very well. Okay, so also on November 8th, if you owned a GameCube and you lived in North America, Nintendo decided they wanted more of your money when they released Mario Power Tennis.
Yes, as they had the experience with Mario Tennis on the N64, so they had to advance it up to the GameCube. So many party memories with the friends around the GameCube in those times.
Yes, I feel like GameCube was like the best era for like Mario like party games.
Yeah, pretty much fit the scope of things, the fitting within Nintendo's MO at the time. Kind of the case of if there was a game with a multitude of people around to play, whether it be all your friends or family members, Nintendo was the safest bet.
Well, and they had the tennis game, they had a baseball game, they had Strikers, which is like the soccer game, a bunch of Mario parties. Like they were releasing a ton of those type of games at the time.
Yeah, though sadly it might have caused the over fluctuation of Mario parties of that time.
I wish we would get another Mario baseball game because that game was fun.
That would definitely be interesting, but sadly it would fall into typical hole of Nintendo of the only way they would make it if they make some sort of gimmick for it, and there's only so much you can do with baseball.
I guess. So November 9th, the day of this episode airing, if you had a PS2, you could pick up iToy Anti-Grav, a game that nobody remembers because it was for the iToy.
Yeah, the thing that they added on with the PlayStation 2 to make it more interesting.
Yeah, I. Did you know anybody who owned an iToy? Because I don't think I did. Like, I don't.
Not that I specifically know of, and it might have been the case of it could have been there, but it might have just been the case of they didn't have any sort of game that actually used it, or it was just given along with the PlayStation 2 when they got it secondhand. And it's like, here's all the stuff you need for the PlayStation 2. And it's like, what's this little camera for? It's like, oh, it's nothing important. You can take it along with it. But isn't it just take the camera?
Also on November 9th, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you could pick up Shaman King Master of Spirits.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was a series.
Apparently, it's a Metroidvania game. I'm not familiar with this. Also on
No, that
November.
would, no, that would be interesting with the particular series and making it into a Metroidvania. Hmm.
Also on November 9th, if you had a PS2, you could pick up Shaman King Power of Spirit.
Yeah, because that was a thing. One of the things that I know of, but not actually, because I haven't watched the series.
Okay, I am not familiar with it at all. If you had a PS2, there was a major release here called Jack 3. That was also on November 9th.
Jack 3. One of the best and the other particular game that was released within the Jack series. And rest its soul with where it's sitting now.
Yeah, it's sad that we haven't got more of the Jack games.
It's a bit of a case of with how much the series has kind of gone on with how it went and how it kind of finished. There's only so much that they could have done with it. And then, of course, the attempt that they tried to expand with it did not turn out so well.
Well, and I feel like Naughty Dog isn't the company who would do it anymore because they've got a bunch of other
Yeah,
stuff going
they
on.
kind of have a whole bunch of other big things on their plate.
Yeah.
But kind
Any
of the interesting stepchild of the Crash Bandicoot series jumping into this and then going on into the Uncharted series.
Yes. And finally, on November 9th, if you owned an Xbox, my god, was this a day for you because Halo 2 came out.
Yeah, it was pretty much a day because schools were empty around most all over the place and just everyone was taking the day off work. All the particular sorts of stuff. There were most likely discussions of parties going on for the release of this.
Yeah, Halo 2 was massive at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes, that was what was released at the time for video games. Let us move on to the number one film in America, Dave. Any idea what that could be?
I'm pretty sure it would be the same from last week. I'm really hoping so because I'm not sure what exactly would top it at the time with the Incredibles.
So last week was The Grudge, but this week it is The Incredibles, yes.
Oh, okay, just the case of with the game releases kind of spoiling what's this sitting up at the
Yes.
top.
Yes, they did. The Incredibles is a very good animated movie that if you
It
haven't
is a
seen...
Pixar movie, good sir. How could it be not expected to be good?
That's a challenge.
Yes, with those sort of
Pix...
discussions, I'm sure.
Is there any Pixar movies that I don't think are good?
I'm sure that's probably a decent discussion, but probably not for this before we get too sidetracked.
I feel like A Bug's Life isn't great, and Monsters University wasn't great, and
How about Monsters Inc?
Monsters Inc. is fantastic. The
So it's a
sequel.
question of how was it with the numbers, though?
Oh, it probably made stupid amounts of money, and I feel like Lightyear wasn't very good either. But other than that, like it's a very solid filmography. Anyway,
Very true.
Moving on to the number one song in America. Any idea what it could be?
Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it was still the one from last week, which, as it sits still, I can't remember the title for the life of me.
It is still My Boo by Usher and Alicia Keys.
Mm,
And it will be for a little while yet.
yeah, because that marvelous time of the airwaves being completely invaded by one song for a decent amount of time.
Yes, although will get replaced before the end of the year.
Which is nice, although it's also the chance of it might not also be so nice.
Uh, Personal opinion, the song that replaces it is better. Anyway, let us move on to this episode of Veronica Mars. Alrighty. So a bunch of stuff happens in this episode.
Maybe just a touch with all the stuff that goes on.
Yes. So the episode begins in medias res. Veronica sits outside of their apartment building, and we see a stretcher being carried off. Through voiceovers, Veronica tells us that she was in some way connected to the crime. The episode then flashes back to 1 week earlier, when Veronica meets Sarah, a heavily pregnant neighbor who asks her for help with a missing journal she believes her boyfriend stole. In newspaper class, Mallory Dent shows a woman, Evelyn Bugby, to Veronica and asks for her help with a project on the class of 79. She eventually agrees to help with the project. Veronica looks through the old yearbook and sees a photo of her mother, Leanne. During a test, a teacher, Mr. Daniels, fails both Logan and Weevil for talking. They're placed in detention, during which the two bicker and eventually play poker. The teacher comes in and sentences them to a full week of detention. Veronica returns home and views Sarah and her boyfriend Andre arguing. That night, Veronica is awakened by a woman's scream overheard and a body falling. The next morning, Veronica goes to Sarah's door to take her to a doctor's appointment, but there's no response. She looks through the window to see the room in disarray and Sarah's dog alone barking. In the bathroom one day, another student talks to Weevil, and it is heavily implied that Weevil was carrying on an affair with Lily Kane. Veronica talks to Duncan about something she found in the yearbook, that Veronica's mother, Leanne, and Jake Kane were once a couple in high school. A flashback details Veronica's breakup with Duncan, which was abrupt and mystified Veronica. At Sarah's workplace, her boss says that he doesn't know where Sarah is either. He also gives Veronica the information that she fights with her boyfriend a lot. Veronica goes to find Andre. She questions him, but he dismisses it as a simple fight and nothing serious. She doesn't believe him, and these suspicions are heightened when it turns out that Andre is painting a portrait of a female nude who is not Sarah. Veronica sneaks into Sarah's apartment and finds some mysterious things, including Sarah's phone and a gun. Andre comes in and finds Veronica. She manages to escape with minimal conflict. In another flashback, Veronica asks Lily Kane why Duncan broke up with her, but she is vague and unspecific. In detention, Weevil states that he has a plan to get the teacher back, which involves stealing the teacher's car and putting it on the flagpole. Weevil is told by the principal that he's expelled in the aftermath of the prank. After Veronica gives Sarah's parents Keith's card, they visit Keith. Afterwards, Keith tells Veronica that he does not want her on the case. However, she convinces him otherwise, as long as she stays away from Andre. She finds out that Sarah's baby is not Andre's. Logan confesses to the prank as well. Veronica visits Sarah's boss again, and she finds out from her boss that Sarah was sexually assaulted, and the baby might be the child of the assaulter. Veronica calls Weevil's motorcycle gang, and they come in order to convince the boss to give Veronica Sarah's journal, which he stole. This works successfully. Weevil is unexpelled, and they are both sentenced to a punishment to remove graffiti. Logan notices that Weevil has a tattoo with Lily's name on it, but Weevil claims it is not because he was involved with her before her death, but because it's his little sister's name. Veronica reads Sarah's notebook, and upon visiting a beach highlighted in the journal, finds Sarah there near her parked car. Sarah goes back to Andre. Over dinner, Keith muses that Andre must truly care for Sarah as a man who would help a mother raise a child that is not his own. The comment makes Veronica suddenly wonder if this assessment might possibly describe Keith as well, given the recent revelation that her own mother was deeply attached to Jake Kane decades before. She snaps out of this thought when Keith continues his conversation to wonder who the true father of Sarah's baby could be. Meanwhile, upstairs, Sarah's mother finds out that she was sexually assaulted, with the actual father of the child being Sarah's stepfather. Keith and Veronica come and help. Keith ends up shooting and wounding the stepfather to protect Sarah. We then return to the point at which the episode began. So, what did we think of this episode, Dave?
It's always interesting with these types of episodes that start in medias res, as you mentioned at the start, where it gives you the situation of, oh God, some stuff happened, and then how it happened. Um, it's one of the nicer cases because of things in the past. It's the case of the start of those sort of stories kind of gives you either setup clues or misdemeanors of how things are going to play out. But it's definitely nice with this one that it's a bad situation, but with how the series kind of goes on, there's not too much concern of how everything sort of plays on from the start of the episode. So I was definitely happy to see with that. But still kind of the case of how everything kind of panned out. There was little bits of with how things ended in that cases, as well as what the episode is setting up with things, because the things it's setting up.
Yes, so there are a couple of things being set up here that might be important later. We do get that Keith mentioning how much Andre must care about Sarah in order to help her raise a child that isn't his. I wonder if
Yeah,
that'll be important later.
yeah, that's kind of a thought. Then, of course, also the case with the boys there. Weevil is one of them,
And Logan.
and Logan. Yeah, with that kind of a when I first sort of saw it, kind of a uh, powder keg combination as it sort of sits. Though I think one of the big ones that you mentioned with it, or wasn't quite mentioned within the episode that brought up, was one of the cases or one of the things that Logan uses as leverage, since it's the best thing he kind of got to use it, was after Weevil was suspended, he tries to get his credit for pulling the prank on the principal and whatnot, but has the leverage of there's famous rock star shoes that his dad was going to donate to the school to help him get a new scoreboard. That all the slimy connections of things.
Yes. So let's just go over a couple of the really important things that happen in this episode. So, one, we find out that Veronica's mom, Leanne, and Jake Kane dated in high school.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of a big thing. Just the tiniest bit.
Yes. In a flashback, we see that Veronica asks Lily to find out why Duncan broke up with her, but the next day, Lily, we assume, has found something out and tells her to forget it and move on.
Yeah, yeah, kind of one of the big things.
And you also mentioned about the vice principal telling Logan to remind his father to donate the boots from one of his hit movies to the school because they
Yeah,
need a new scoreboard. I guess I don't know.
yeah, all the money transferring and the particular things that kind of go on with that sort of stuff.
Logan finds out that Weevil has a tattoo of Lily, so
Yeah,
that'll
another kind of
probably come back later.
yeah, and the other couple things that have kind of been already hinting that there's been things with Weevil and Lily that supposedly happened.
Yes. And Weevil and Logan do the prank with the English teacher's car on the flagpole, which initially Weevil gets expelled for, but later on Logan admits his part in it, and Weevil is allowed back into the school.
Yeah, so he's not out of the story yet, thank goodness.
Yes,
Though I think it's also a case of with the specific prank. I have no idea how they specifically did that aside from, haha, it's a movie prop.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one of those things where I'm always like, how? Hmm.
Like, is that logistically possible aside from building the car actually around the post?
Yeah, I don't know. So some sad news. One of our characters will no longer be back.
Hmm.
So Mallory Dent, who was I think she was like a journalism teacher or whatever. This will be her
Okay.
final episode.
Okay, with her.
Yes.
Hopefully nothing super concerning with her not being within the show.
No, it's because the actress got pregnant and decided to quit.
Okay, with those sort of things kind of going along.
Yes.
Well, as long as there wasn't too much hee-haw about her taking the time off for something like that happening.
No, as far as I know, no, because I feel like she's familiar and I've seen her in other stuff.
Hmm.
Um, what else has she done? Yeah, like the next year, or well, 2 years later, she would be in a bunch of episodes of Grey's Anatomy, and then she was in the Knight Rider reboot. Oh my god, I forgot that existed. But yeah, I don't think so. I think she just took some time off to have the
No,
kid.
understandable. Completely understandable.
So yeah, that was this episode of Veronica Mars, the girl next door. Quite a good episode. Lots happened. We find out a bunch of interesting potential clues.
Hmm.
Yes.
No, additionally, one last thing to quickly add to the story with this is we've had our typical dog companion of Veronica to always help out with things, but always nice to see that this episode added an additional dog character in the apartment building. I sadly can't immediately remember the name, but cute little Chihuahua for
Yes.
the setting.
Sarah's dog is named Killer.
Yeah.
Yes, and Veronica's dog I love because his name is Backup, and that is a
No, of
great
course.
name for a dog for them. Alrighty, so next week we'll be discussing the episode Like a Virgin. Oh, this is gonna be a heavy one, Dave.
Oh, yay. Because it's what we need with these particular sorts of series. Episode to come in and back slap us in the face.
Yeah, ooh boy, this is gonna a lot's gonna happen in this episode, and oh my. So just to give you a little bit of a taste, when someone publicly releases the results of an online purity test and causes chaos at the school, Veronica goes on the case. Meanwhile, Veronica attempts to obtain information from the confessed killer of Lily Kane, Abel Kuntz. But she gets more than she bargained for.
Yeah, that seems like a bit of an issue, even with the concerns of what's going on. The supposed concerns of speaking with a killer might bring up some problems.
Oh, yes, it will. So, until next time, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.